Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing the end of season account overview for Contention season or whatever it's called because I completely forgot. The season was completely hectic. I wasn't trying as hard as I could have possibly tried, so unlike last season I didn't try to push for Emperors, but I did end Champions. So I do want this video to be somewhat of a message to anyone who thinks that they can't climb up here, that you can climb up the Champions. Just believe in yourself, slam some games, and you can get there. So let's get started with the account overview. One thing I also want to make clear before the start of this video is that anyone that is not included, and I will mention this again at the end, is that anyone who's not included I just simply did not use. And if you also look through my hero journal here, these are every single unit I was missing the whole entire season, which is the reason for all the current units I use and currently use as of right now. First and foremost, we have Edward Elric, and I'm going to say that this man has not been as useful to me as he was in previous seasons. He has fallen off, but not too much fall off the cliff like some of the other units from the past. He is still good into cleave, but that is practically it. He is very hard to use anywhere else because of DDR. DDR does debuff him, but then he venoms him, injures him, and then when he's injured, he loses his damage. So his main usage is definitely to cleave, but even so, sometimes it's really hard because of Bride, Senya, and Haste protecting the rest of the team. So I didn't get much uses out of Ed. I still think he's somewhat usable in certain cleave comps, but not all cleave comps. So for him, he wasn't an MVP for me. Hwayoung I haven't used once. Yeah, I don't even know why I still have her geared. She literally, her best usage is into Soul Weavers, so yeah, maybe you can use her into Blood Moon Haste, but to be honest with you, with the build I'm running right now, I can't even use her into Blood Moon Haste. One, I need immunity set, and two, I need to be faster, and those are two things I don't have. I don't even have a plus 30 artifact on her. So I didn't use Hwayoung once, so goodbye Hwayoung. Nahkwol is another pretty good MVP for the season. Nahkwol is a must gear unit. Don't worry about me being on like a candlestick. You run her on Guiding Light and run her as fast as you can, or just run her with high effectiveness. You don't even need to run her at 270 speed. You can run her at slower speeds. Just you need to be faster than what you want to reset. So Nahkwol is a very important unit as of right now. If you're feeling as if everything is too OP for you, bring Monk. She has this fabulous thing called a seal on her S2 that seals passives so they don't work. So that fabulous Blood Moon Haste that you hate fighting, you just take her into it, seal Haste, you laugh at them, and you kill his team. That Bride Senya you hate, take her, reset her, seal the Bride Senya, kill the back row unit. Navy Captain Landy, go burr, bang bang bang, kill your whole entire team. Oh nope, can't do that when she's binded. Yeah, Nahkwol is a very much top 1 unit and she's absolutely OP. If you don't have her, find a way to pick her up. If you do have her, get her geared. She is very much a really good unit to have geared. Phantom Politis. I honestly didn't use this unit as much as last season as well. As Politis is still a very strong unit for her CR manipulation as well as her stuns and debuffs that she brings. So just because I didn't use her as much as last season does not mean she's not a strong unit. In comparison to someone like Ed, who I think did fall off, she has not fallen off at all. She just still provides a lot of value, and especially if you're getting a Sea Phantom Politis or you see a Janua, she's still valuable to bring into those comps. She can stop CR gain, so if you see a MO Leica or a lot of CR push or manipulation there, you can still bring her to like suppress your opponent. So bring her, she's great. Don't just ungear her. She's bad. Just do it. Just ungear her. I didn't get that much mileage out of Rem, but except for some cleave comps. I think Rem is still a funny unit to use. I used her for fun every now and then. She counters and absolutely bullies your cleave comps. So really good into cleave teams. Otherwise, not so much. Landy is kind of a better unit. ae-Karina. I can't believe I'm saying this, but for the first season, I fully believe Karina was a worse unit. For a very long time, ever since Karina has been released, Karina has been a really strong top tier unit no matter what. She would one-shot cleave comps, she would deal with Janua, but this season, it was just not the case. Because of the third pick ban protection, there's no way to avoid getting defense broken or pay a third picked. So the moment she gets unbuffable and restricted by Para, she loses value. The moment that she gets debroken, she loses damage. So she's not as good into cleave comps now because there's always a Rand on 3. So you just get defense broken, she does less damage. Janua is just a stupid unit and absolutely mauls her even though she's there. So for that reason, she just fell off. She's still a decently strong unit when she is very much playable, but she's definitely much harder to use than before. Elvira I did not use once. Maybe I used once, but that's it. Elvira just does not do enough. Although she does quite a bit in her kit for control reasons, that is pretty much it. And unfortunately, because of how fighting spirit units work in this game, they completely just don't care. So if you're still getting aggroed on by units like Abyssal Yufine, well, not really Abyssal Yufine, but Candy, then she's just gonna run down Elvira, and it's just like, just doesn't feel like she does enough. Although she does a lot for what she's supposed to do, but it's just like, see, Phantom Politis exists, so why not just use her instead? Bybwis-Chan. Alright, this is the only unit you need when you're fighting counterattack units. Now, Bybwis has a niche and I'm all for it. I've been a Bybwis enjoyer since last season and you should too. Now, if you don't have Bybwis geared, I say get her geared. Although she has her niche situations against counterattacks, she is an absolute monster of a control unit when she's in those comps. If you play your cards right and get Bybwis in the right draft, if you have her artifact, unlike me, you can actually control the other team and punish them really hard just for counterattacking. And with Navy Captain Landy still being really freaking good, Navy Captain Landy a year after her release still being really good, Bybwis still has her value. If you can slam Bybwis on 3 and follow up with a cleave unit like maybe LAC if it's plausible, I know she's not a very good unit right now, but if you have the right situations, maybe a Lone Crescent Luna, a Janua, any DPS on 3 and on 4 and 5, follow that up with Bybwis on 3, you are going to guarantee debreak one of their targets on their team and absolutely delete them off the field. The best part about Bybwis is the fact that their opponent can't control counterattacks, so it's going to happen and they can't stop it. So Bybwis is going to proc, defense break their team, and if they keep countering, Bybwis will keep spamming. She will keep spamming heals and defense breaks, and you will just keep freaking damaging them. That is the best part about Bybwis, and so that's the reason why I still have her geared, and I think she's a pretty decent unit, especially if you're a turn 2 player. This is the best Aria you'll ever see. No, she's pretty bad, but I pretty much only use her for GBG nowadays because it's pretty hard to slot into RTA. But if I ever needed to pocket pick her, it will definitely be a 4 and 5 pick. Her main usage for me would have been into Janua, but with the introduction of Bybwis-Chan Haste, I can't go accidentally killing targets for fun, so I can't really draft her as much. But in situations, if there is one where Bybwis-Chan and Haste aren't on field, this unit is really good to use in Janua, because if Janua isn't colorblind that day, then you hypothetically should be winning matchups, especially if you're on Fairy Tail. Otherwise, you're just going to lose to Janua critting you. Very sad meta we're in, aren't we? Elena! Elena is kind of a really yeah, you can see I have some non-invested stuff here, but my reasoning for that is that I can't get a high speed ring on effect resistance main stack. I tried rolling it and I need these 2 specific stats on the same exact piece and it just wasn't happening. So that's my only reason for this non-reforge piece, because it's not really good to reforge, but it's like only piece I could have gotten. But for like everything else for Elena this season, I think she is still decent into cleave. If you can run a faster Elena than me, I think she will be way more higher value than I got out of her. The only reason I haven't gotten as much value is because of the fact that I'm just not fast. If I were to get this build up to like 240 speed with maintaining fairly the same stats, she would be way more usable, because you would be able to cut on S2, including Mankaro's Tome, and cut their openers, or after the opener goes, you cut, and then you put up your immortality, you cleanse your whole entire team, and you're safe from the cleave. But because of the fact that my speed is kind of lacking on my account, I wasn't able to fathom the stats to do so. Maybe I can also just drop like effective resistance to 150, but it's kind of risky to do that in some scenarios. But I do think Elena is still a decent unit to have geared on your account. Oh man, Wukong, I was having a party with this guy. He's really hard to draft, but dang, this man is so fun to use. If you were ever fighting Bybwis-Chan and they don't have a Navy Captain Landy on their team or something, or maybe you're fighting a Blood Moon Haste, you can magically bring this man in here. If you want to use this unit, he is the premier unit. Now, okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth, he's just really hard to draft, but if you do want a fun unit to use, just use him. He does have a positive like matchup into Bybwis-Chan and Haste, the two problem units, but other than that, he is fairly he's a ramp up character, so he's not gonna do a ton of damage on his S1s as he starts the match until he starts getting hit a bit more. But if you do play Protect the President comp, just fully just put Wukong by himself, support, protect him, you can, if you can find a way, play him. And for that reason, I do think he's, if I were to even rate him, I do think he's A rank. I don't think he's any lower than that. He's definitely a really good unit. It's just really hard to play. But he is insanely strong if you're able to slot him into like a really Protect the President comp. But like, if we were to put him on a spectrum with every other OP unit in this meta, then it would make him look like a B or C rank. But I don't want to devalue him that much, because he's actually a decent unit if you can actually put him in here. Who would have thought this unit would be both our savior and both the detriment to the entire game? This unit was first made and she was so broken that everyone hated her, and now she has become a necessary evil. If you don't have Laia, I beg of you, take all of your bookmarks, store 600 in your back pocket, and like literally Hawkeye the stove page until you see Laia rerun banner, because you need this unit. She is your DPS, she is your cleanser, she is your support, she does everything. She pulls dual attacks, she cleanses your team, shortens cooldowns, she has a nuke on her S3 with that hits as hard as a Dark Corvus S3. She provides tempo to your whole entire team, and she can't be controlled because of Sweet Miracle. You need this unit. Laia is still a first pick in this meta, with DDR, a Tywin all over the place, Monk still being an absolute evil in this meta. Laia is the unit. Now, as annoying as Laia is, at this point in the meta, she is a necessary evil. You need a Laia. Rimuru, I did not get much usage out of him outside of using, oh my gosh, I'm running immunity set on top of Tachi. What the heck happened? That is not his artifact. It was like snow crystals, if I can find it. It's snow crystals. Okay, so remember, I did not get much mileage out of him outside of using him for Gala comps, but like, yeah, he doesn't have that much use outside of it unless you're running a damage rule, which I'm not running because I just don't have the gear to spare for him. But if you do have the gear to spare for a damage remove, go ahead. But this is what I'm running here to hopefully deal with Lilias's. Unfortunately, I just didn't get much success, or at least I just haven't ran into Lilias, or they just use Lilias in the back row with Bybwis-Chan, which I can't hit. Here is Albedo. Albedo is the tankiest unit on my account. She is absolutely freaking has not scare. She is my best tank. I have my best tanker on her, and yeah, I really love using her. I don't use her a ton because the way I draft, I kind of can't draft her unless it's later in the draft, because I take Laia and sometimes Celine on 2, which is 2 green units. So if I take Albedo on 3, I'm pretty much trapped getting fire unit dealt with, right? So I have to take her a bit later in the draft half the time, but I do like taking Albedo. I was an Albedo user since the day she came out, and I thought she was always good since the day she came out. So yeah, this is my Albedo. I picked Christy every now and then as like a little meme pick into like DDR or so, because of the amount of effect resistance she pushes onto the back row, it would enable her to be able to help the back row resist DDR and so on and so forth. It was not exactly the best thing to do, it didn't work all of the time, I just realized I'm not even using effect resistance imprint. That explains a lot. But yeah, it just simply just it's just the fact that she doesn't have an AoE Aureus, right? And her best artifact is Bastion, so she can really only protect the back row unit. And since she can only protect the back row unit, then the rest of your team is more prone to just getting wiped out, which is the problem. Since it's so high damage, you can't just have a solo protection unit that only protects one unit. You need someone like a Carmen or Aureus Albedo that protects everyone. Celine is an absolute monster of a unit. She has been, her buff has done so much for her towards the like the middle of the season. She does so much damage, and she is like literal denial to non-attack skills. Good into the DDR, openers like Phantom Politis and Conqueror Lilias, and some other units that even have a non-attack skill in their kit. It just completely locks them down. And now with the buff, you can run this E or the Thunderclap E, so that you can intuition to random targets. And if you, blink into random targets. And if you blink into a random target, it's less baitable by your opponent, so it leaves less insensitive for them to press buttons and take a hit because they don't know who it's going to go into if they have a more squishy team. This is my very new Gala Lilias. It was not this good beforehand. I literally just pulled a really insane piece for my Gala Lilias, so it was around this stat line here. It was around this stat line before, and I literally could not use it because it was just, it was like she had a bit too much HP, as well as she wasn't fast enough, so I would get debuffs. I didn't use her a lot, but I just got an upgrade, so I'm definitely going to use her more with this 21 speed I rolled yesterday. But otherwise, she is really good into Bride Senya and a lot of the high HP units that were there in the meta, so she was at least a really good pick unit. Not as much for me because of the speed I had, as well as because of the way I played generally. I didn't always have enough value out of her. With the addition of Ilanov, she is going to lose damage as long as Ilanov is there, so be wary of that. Roana is another unit I really liked. I do have a fair bit of wasted stats on this build, but she is very, very bulky, and she is using Solar Harper, so I didn't really care too hard about really reaching the max ER, but I am working towards getting all these wasted stats out of here. She's really good into Navy Captain Landy, and that is pretty much it for this meta, unfortunately, because Lone Crest Belian is just not coming out anymore because of Phantom Politis. And stuff like Bride, Senya, and Haste have true damage, and it's single target damage. So like if a Senya's like counter set, it's probably going to hurt Roana more or your teammates more. And if Haste does an extra attack, since it's a single target attack, you're not getting as much heals out of it, and you're probably still going to take a ton of damage from the Haste. So pretty much she's really a general pick into Navy Captain Landy. But otherwise, yeah, if there is a situation, if like there is an AoE attacker like a Belian, for instance, you can bring her, but it's just like you have her best spot is usually 3, 4, 5 if you lock her in good, but you have to really be playing a slower draft, and you have to ensure that they're using a Navy Captain Landy or something like that. Sharun I picked a couple of times, and I have some decent gear, so I'll show this as well. But she was a okay pick. I don't think I picked her a ton, because she has AoE on her S3, but I picked her into Bride, Senya, Haste every now and then. It doesn't always work because of the counter set, because they just have more tempo than me sometimes. So if I had speed set, I think I would enjoy it a bit more, but she's not really the best as of right now. I think she still has value out of being an injury unit, but you're probably going to get more mileage out of having DDR shoe. This is my Conqueror Lilias. She is still pretty much in the same spot as she was before. If you remember my old account review, she was around 275. I had ungeared her at the start of the season because I just wasn't using her, and I felt like she was really hard for me to pick because of Gray and Celine. And since I played slower, trying to use Conqueror Standard was just honestly it was a bit harder for me instead of like maintaining an aggro draft with her, and just getting Celine. So I didn't pick her as much, but towards the end of the season I started picking her a bit more. She is still a very strong unit, providing vigor, attack down, control, and constant dual attacks from her S1. And I run Sweet Miracle to prevent her from being controlled. I could run a Bastion build instead, but this just means I don't have to run Bastion, so I can put more stats into effectiveness or bulk. That way I can, if I'm getting stunned or slept or I'm getting controlled, I can pop out of the control and pull a dual attack into the target I want. This is my Lionheart Cermia, my absolute queen. I love LHC, she is my favorite. I'm gonna give it a buck. She is pretty much a bad unit right now. She gets countered by literally everything. In the situation she's usable, I love using her, but I'm not gonna sit here and say she's a good unit. She gets countered by Buying Spirit units that shut her down. Elvira, Phantom Politis. Anything that penetrates defense, which is Bride Senya, Haste, LRK. LRK is not that good of a unit right now, but still works. If they have any hard control unit like ML Luna, Monk, it works. If they have, like, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. So it's like, she's really hard to use. As much as I love her, she's not a very good unit right now. This is the Belian. I have 1000 base HP here, and a lot of the other pieces are pretty average. I'm running a 30k HP Belian with 3F because with this combination, it does a ton of damage off the pop damage. Especially when you get this extra attack here, it literally just does 2 procs of 3F, which is like almost like 3000 to 5000 extra like pop damage. It's so fun. It's a really nice build. It's great into cleavers, great into like cockroach passives, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Now unfortunately she's like pretty much permanently banned in RTA, so never get to see her. But I love this build a lot. It works. I know it's pretty bad, but it worked for me all the way up until high champion in the season because once again I didn't push Emperor. It literally works. Carmen is just that good of a unit, guys. You don't even need... Now, truth be told, some of these gear pieces are fairly good for a tank piece on 80 gear. So probably for that reason, that's the reason why it works. But otherwise, yeah, she's just a good unit. She's good into Bride Senya or anyone with full penetration because she's able to mitigate that damage, unlike some of our other tanks in the game who have Aureus, which doesn't mitigate like actual damage, like the damage that you take. It just moves it to the night. I mean damage reduction, right? It's not damage reduction. And something like Albedo, although she has the strongest mitigation in the game, it's for critical damage. So when you're fighting Bride Senya and Haste, you're still taking true damage. So for that reason, Carmen is very strong into those games. Here is the captain of the Landys, the unit that can absolutely solo an entire game. I don't think this unit needs an introduction, so I'll just show you my gear because Candy Uzumaki is a very stupid unit that can just straight up rob games. Otherwise, she's just a unit that sits there and does nothing the entire game. So I'll just go next because, once again, I don't think this unit needs an introduction. This is my fodder gear, Arowell. I used her less and less over the season, and I started to pick Carmen and Albedo more over her. They just provide just slightly a bit more, and into the Janua matchup, although Arowell is good, because of the Bride Senya, running Arowell became worse because you can't just hit the backline unit anymore. Aiden also became slightly worse this season because of Bride Senya and Haste, where you can't accidentally kill some of their team members. So Aiden is still somewhat good into Haste. I mean, she is a dark unit. Of course, her only weakness being evasion. Why do I say her only weakness is evasion? Because not even hit chance units are the problem anymore. It's whether or not she decides to dodge or not. But in addition to whether she dodges or not, a lot of the true damage units like Senya or Haste can actually just not care about Aiden, which is the reason why she isn't as good. Janua doesn't care, Haste doesn't care, Bride Senya doesn't care. RB will just... I mean, RB, you use Aiden to RB, it depends on turn order, but just a lot of units just don't care anymore, which is the reason why she isn't as good. I got a lot of mileage out of Aola this season. I didn't draft her a ton at the beginning, but towards the end I started taking her, and she was actually a lot better than I thought. She still has her unbuffables and silences, which is actually perfect into Bride Senya Haste, because Haste, if he gets his blood aura buff, then he you know, you're getting nuked. But if you unbuffable him, well, there you go. If Bride Senya goes for, if you prepare an S3 for like maybe they're running Candy or something, right? This skill nullifier provides soft mitigation for one attack, so if you time your attacks right, or if you can time some form of turn order, then if you have the skill nullifier up, you can tank a Senya S3 or something, you know? So there's a lot of like utility uses for her for like being a control unit, and although you probably didn't see a lot of people play her, I think she's actually still a very good unit. This is the unit I have geared with decent gear and never used her once. Luna came out, she was an absolute monster. I played her, I won a couple games with her, and I will say she is a extremely good unit. But that's all I can say for Luna. I ban her all the time. I don't even play her myself. As a person who doesn't have a lot of speed on your account, leaving Luna open is just really bad for me, because also being a person who doesn't have a lot of stuff like utilities, like I don't have Tywin. My only cleansers I can really use is Laia, Hangai, and Hangai is not that good in like fighting certain things, right? I don't even have Dragon King Sharun to fight DDR, so having Luna open to my opponent is sometimes pretty detrimental. So I had to leave her permanently banned after like the first week, because I just can't fight her and I have no way to deal with her. So I can't really say how good she is for my playstyle, because I can't leave her open. She's too broken. Moon Bunny here is also on fodder gear. Well, not really fodder gear. I moved some gear for Frida just to test her out, but she was around like 230-ish speed before, and once I move the gear back after I'm done testing Frida, it'll be the same. But BDOM, really great unit into DDR. It just prevents them from pressing buttons. Unfortunately, since I don't have a lot of speed, I couldn't really make her faster than this, and I think if you're playing against DDR, having a little bit more speed is nicer. It just means you can aggro him and potentially take him out pretty quickly. But otherwise, since I don't have that speed, I have her a bit slower. But she still has that value, preventing DDR from S3 and S2ing you. Of course, into Munk, very strong. Lua, not so much. Lua has been popping up back in the season, but still, of course, Lua has the option, right? But I still think BDOM is pretty dang good. This is my hand guy after I took some gear off of him to put onto Laia. Still very decent. I didn't play him a ton. I did play him a bit more when Luna came out, because I needed answers to Luna that wasn't just Laia. Because if they banned my Laia, then I can't do anything. I don't have Arcades right now, so this is the only other option. So I usually have to lock him in ban protection and hope that the turn order goes well. And yeah, that's pretty much the only matchup I really took him into, because I usually first pick Laia, because Laia is just a stronger unit and she's just really the only thing I can really do. So our next unit here is Abyssal Yufine. Abyssal Yufine is honestly still a pretty okay unit. I will say she has gotten worse over time, and it's not even her fault. Simply everything just penetrates defense, and Janua exists. And when Janua is on out in the open, you cannot pick Yufine, or she just absolutely gets blasted. If you are playing hard tank down, it is possible to fit her into games, but she is just really much harder to use with the amount of things that just straight up penetrate defense and just one tapper. If you do tank down with Carmen, it is possible to play her into Bride Senya, but it's just slightly harder. But you just have to have the right tuning and gear to do so. I think she's still very good into cleave because of her passive with her CR push manipulation, so you can it reduces their CR pushing, but otherwise I'm not too sure. Arbiter Vildred had a pretty huge comeback after his buff, and I definitely I 100% think that you should build him, and if you don't have his EE already, make sure to go get it. He's definitely really good into cleave comps as long as there's no people who block revives. If you notice that they're low on, their team is low on damage, you can force them in. If there's nothing that like hard counters Arby, you can literally just 4th and 5th pick him, and he's usually a must ban unit. So I really do think Arby is a really good high damage unit, and just pick him. You can run him on counter, full damage, a little bit of speed. He has quite a few builds. Briar Witch is honestly still a decent unit. I didn't get much mileage out of her myself. She got a lot more towards the end of the season, I would say, but it was just, for me, she's just not the best unit, or like a combo unit. I just don't have the combo units for her, right? I think she still has value if you are a faster player to play against say haste, as well as probably just haste. Now that I think about it, it's mainly haste, because like evasion units don't pop up as often anymore, but she's still a really good pick if there's any like evasion units. But to be honest with her main like focus right now for a unit is preventing revives and defense breaking. So pretty much really good for faster players. For me, as a slower player, I don't pick her so often. Phantom Politis is another unit that, although I have her built right now, I don't have a lot of playtime with her. She is just one of those units that if I have her cool, maybe I could find a way to use her, but the moment it gets into my opponent's hands, I will get ran over, and I just literally just can't let that happen when I'm playing during in the main season. So I pre-banned her along with Luna. If this unit gets in the hands of my opponent, I am going to lose. That is literally how it is. So for the games I did play with her with this build, it's really fun to play, especially if they play some stupid like 300 speed Belian. I just funny resist it and keep it going. If I can make this build faster, I would, but that is the extent of my speed gear. But once again, that's pretty much the only usage I found out of it, because I just had to keep it in my bands. Spectre Tenebria. Don't mind the artifact. I was having fun with her and I just didn't switch it back. But this unit also kind of fell off. I mean, this has been the way for like the last 2 seasons at this point. It's just a lot of AoE, a lot of true damage. Although Spectre cannot get hit, even with the addition of New Moon Luna, if Luna takes the first turn, it will seal Spectre and you can just start targeting her. She is just really she is a pocket pick. If she ever gets into a situation where she's a really good unit, she is your best unit. Like, don't get me wrong, if you somehow manage to get a fair match, she is going to be a really good unit. But so far it's pretty hard because we have Chinua, who does pop damage, so she will eventually die unless she's on lifesteal. We have BBK, we got RB, we got freaking, if you hit the back row, Senya's gonna AoE you and probably one tap her too. If you kill anyone else other than Haste with, it's just a lot of things that just prevent her from doing her thing, or just a lot of things that will just straight up kill her. So I just didn't play her a lot this season, but I still have her geared because I do think she's still a really good pocket pick. Zeo is honestly a really good unit if you are a slower player, but the biggest problem is that the biggest way to use him as a slower player is to read your opponent, which I can't exactly do too much sometimes. The biggest reason why I haven't been picking him, although it's like, hey, if you pick this unit, you can probably have a better chance of fighting off a cleave. I found myself, I had a better chance of just picking more like tank down units in my draft rather than taking Zeo. But it's just really hard to take Zeo because since I play slowly, the best way to pick Zeo is to pick him into someone who's trying to speed rush you down, right? But in those situations, they already take Zeo as their first pick. So yeah, you don't even get to use him. So I do think he's still a very strong unit. I think he's still worth having geared. For me, I just couldn't use him as much for that reason, because the only people who really use him are cleavers, and if they are cleaving, they usually take him, and then I can't use him. Otherwise, maybe some aggro situation or denying someone else's first turn, but once again, for like the units I generally played the most, he just couldn't fit in my drafts. And that is pretty much it for my account overview. Thank you for watching. I only covered literally the units I used in the season, so you can see a lot of units I scrolled past because, well, I just barely used them and they just weren't really just high usage for me, and just really just didn't benefit me enough to really cover them. I just didn't use them, right? So there's really no point in really talking about things I didn't use because it's just, you're just geared, right? If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, be sure to subscribe. If you haven't checked out my last video, go check it out. It has some really nice tool tips for you if you don't know about it. I'll see you guys in the next video.